Don't you guys all feel better now? I know I do. All right, so we're going to talk about participation today because, we don't want to be an idiot America. We want to be in it so that we're affecting it. All right, we're going to talk about the Lost Civic World today, but before we do, I'm going to make announcements and then I'm going to take attendance. Announcement number one. For some reason, Cengage had popped up some things that I did not authorize, writing assignments, Shelby, and also there's a second one, Voting Rights Act, maybe. And you were not supposed to do that. They were not in your syllabus. It's not something that was assigned. I've deleted them. So I did not see that anybody had completed them in this class, but I could be wrong. And if they caused you panic, I'm sorry. That's number one. Number two, you have an exam on Friday. I sent you the topics yesterday, but I'll send you the full questions after this class. I just needed, as you saw, I had children, some of you saw, my husband dropped off children at noon, and that's when my first class ended, and he picked them up at 2. So I was unable to do anything but juggle babies for a bit. So, so I'll do it right after, do the forms. The format is exactly the same as exam 1. Okay. It's exactly the same. There's some things in there that may make you think that it's short answer. That's because last semester it was. I tried to change it up a little bit, but it's going to be exactly the same format. So the topics I sent out, I will send out the full questions by about 5 o'clock today. It is open from midnight on Thursday or 11:59 p.m. on Thursday until 11:59 p.m. on Friday. If you have if you have a religious conflict with that, then please speak to your TA in advance, and your TA will help make accommodations. Yeah, we have lab on Friday. That's not canceled. So you still have lab on Friday. I think you guys are going to present some of your campaign ads, and you're going to get in your committees for bill discussion the next week. So those two things are going to be happening this Friday. If you're traveling for Easter, that is an absence. School is not out. So if you have a religious event, on Friday, I'm sorry your TA said that. That is not accurate. Okay. So we have lab on Friday. School is not canceled. School is in. You guys need to, I know that you have things that you need to be doing. All right. Okay. So I am going to start talking right now about the lecture, going to the lecture. And I do have office hours after this, but I'm going to take attendance first. So I'm taking attendance right now. It has started. Attendance is live. Attendance is live, so please check in if you have not checked in. Again, if you have a religious observance that conflicts with Friday specifically, please contact your TA. If you're traveling on that day, that is not a conflict, all right? So please check in with your TA for accommodations if you have a religious observance. There is a minute left on attendance. I just want to put this up here. This is for Oklahoma and all the states that it touches, except for Missouri. You know what? Missouri should be there. So when I fix this, I'll put Missouri up as well so that you can see that. But this is how you get there. You can also say how to register to vote in your state on Google, and they will send you to the right place. We'll talk more about voting on Wednesday. Today, I want to talk about engagement. I want to talk about civic life, and I want to talk about some things that we as political scientists have found that are very different than they were 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and what difference, why it is that that has happened, okay? So we're going to start with bowling alone. Many years ago in the mid 19th century, so 1850s, 1860s, a man who was a scholar from France actually toured the United States, de Tocqueville, to discover what was it about the United States that was making democracy work, okay? So he traveled around, and what he found is that Americans tended to be joiners. They played baseball. They joined churches. They went to town meetings. They joined civic clubs. They joined woodworking clubs. They joined crafting clubs. They had meetings and they went to it. They played sports together. They liked doing things together. And de Tocqueville argued that one of the strengths of American democracy, along with its large middle class, was this civic engagement, the fact that we were joiners. And so in the year 2000, Bob Putnam is looking at American civic life 20 years ago, and he says, we don't join things anymore, right? We don't join things anymore. And so if we, I'm seeing some comments that I just want to address. If you are observing a religious, if you have a religious conflict, please speak to your TA and accommodations will be made. If you do not have a religious conflict, then do not speak with your TA. If you do not observe Good Friday, or if you do not observe Passover, then do not speak to your TA about it. If you intend to observe that holiday, please speak to your TA and they will help you make accommodations. Okay. So he looked around and he said, people aren't joining things the way that they used to. And we have to have this to make democracy work. It's one of the reasons why democracy is not working. And he says, why? You know, what is it that we're losing by not joining? And what we're losing by not joining is social capital. Social capital. Social capital, and I guarantee you this will be a multiple choice question on your exam. Social capital are the norms and networks of reciprocity and trust that build up in society over time. This social capital means that we talk to each other and we talk to each other in civil tones, in civil discourse about things that are not political, that are political, that are not religious, that are religious, that are community in nature. But we've built up these norms and networks of reciprocity and trust based upon the way we rely on each other as a community. On Wednesday, we'll talk about the free rider problem. But this is one of those things, social capital, that overcomes that problem. People tend to not participate. This is the free rider problem. if they figure somebody else is doing it. With social capital, it becomes something that's important that I give so that I receive from others. It cultivates participation. Civic participation and volunteering builds social capital. Social capital means we rely on each other, we participate more. But Bob Putnam documents that it had clearly declined. One of the questions he poses 20 years ago is the internet going to help revive it, or is it going to destroy it? He was thinking about chat rooms at the time. What do you guys think? As the internet evolves, social media, do you think it helped revive? Reciprocity means that I give and you give. For example, in my neighborhood, my children are going to participate in an Easter egg hunt. But that reciprocity means that I fill Easter eggs more than my children will have, and I donate them. Reciprocity, giving and getting. But it's not necessarily even. So, social media. Has it helped build social capital? This idea that we trust each other and we give and we take and we build up that idea of capital. Some of you say yes. Eric says no. Anybody else?
Cantankerous old man here.
More say no. Well, I want you guys to think about social media, all right? And I want you to think about it as we go through this in terms of how it can be used and maybe in the ways it's now being used differently than it was used, say, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or, by many people today, to make it work and be more unifying rather than divisive. There's also an idea that we have social networks that we build through this social capital. Whether it be that we are building a social network in your neighborhood. I always talk about my neighbors at this particular time. They're in their 70s. We do not have similar political beliefs. I often bring them to campus for my voting and campaigns class to be interviewed so that there is a perspective that the students don't normally get. While we do not agree politically, we agree on lots of things about how to treat each other. I know for a fact if I had an emergency, they would take care of my children. My husband too, probably. I know for a fact if they had an emergency, they would not hesitate to knock on my door. And I also know that they would do the same for small things, and I would do the same for small things. We have built a social bond of trust there, regardless of our political affiliation or beliefs. Social networks are even broader. If I play on a summer league softball team with a group of people that what we have in common is we like playing summer league softball and drinking cold beer, then we're still going to like each other, get to know each other. Even though it has nothing to do with politics, maybe we're willing to listen to each other. So this role of social networks means, that maybe I play with someone who can coach my kids' baseball team. Maybe I play with someone who helps whenever it's time for my daughter to apply to a school that she wants to get into because they are an alumni. When we talk about social networks, we're talking about how we build things together and they overlap each other. One of the key things when we talk about this civic world that we've lost is how we learn to be citizens. And service learning is a big part of that. High school students sometimes do some service learning projects in which they volunteer, or they work a poll, or they get involved in the community. We have college programs. Here at OU, we have two really great programs, Capital Scholars and Community Scholars, that you can get college credit for and go work at the Capitol, go work at a nonprofit. We have students who have worked on campaigns and gotten college credit for that. They've learned how to be citizens, and they're getting this reciprocity from education. They're getting some grades, right, to do that. And then there's this class, right? I've told you guys from the beginning, the entire purpose of this class is to teach you how to be citizens. In other words, how to do the things, the actions that it takes for citizenship. Theda Skocpol points out that her name is Theda Skocpol. They really don't want to say that one. And she's a scholar at Harvard as well. And she looked at what Bob Putnam had done, and she said, you know, Bob, I think you're onto something, but I think you're missing not just that there's this network, this informal social capital that's being built up, but also that we have lost the avenues that we had to understand how government works. And so she's looking at the fact that we lost civic life. Her concerns are similar to Putnam's. How do we make the US fairer and more democratic? She points out that we have growing inequality in terms of income and political voice. When we talk about access to college, 50 years ago, you could work a job part-time and it would pay your way through college. That's impossible today. So her research starts with a hunch. She says, we used to have really high civic engagement in the past. And she decides, she starts looking through things, that engagement is linked to these large national voluntary associations. She discovers 60 of them in the US past, and we're going to talk about them in just a second. But what she thinks is significant about them is this: there is cross-class participation and buy-in. In other words, it doesn't matter if you're poor, you're upper middle class, you're middle class, you're wealthy. You participate in these organizations and you believe in the importance of these organizations. You buy into it. Leaders of these organizations rose from within the ranks. It was not unheard of for a plumber to be president and a banker to be vice president of an association. And so we have this mixing of lifestyles. We have this mixing of ideas and experiences. And people are sitting elbow to elbow at the table. You add that to the fact that political leaders are often going to come out of these organizations. Hey, you know what, Homer? We think you did a great job as president. We think you ought to run for city council or state representative. And they're connected. They're connected directly to the average members in their organizations. because they see them. It's going to broaden participation. It's going to enhance citizen voice, and it's going to make government, and this is the key for democracy, more responsive to what the people want. Here's a perfect example. In 1945, Congress proposes a law that all those who had been made officers in the field during World War II should get the opportunity to have their college paid for. Because in order to be an officer, you had to have a college degree. And this seemed like a good way to even that out. The American Legion said, not good enough. All of these people served. All of these people deserve to get the opportunity to go to college. And the American Legion and the majority of the American people backed this up. As a result, it passed, and generations have gone. Generations of people have gone to college who had not before because of the GI Bill. My father was one of those. He went to college on the GI Bill in 1970 after he got out of Vietnam. Edward points out that it's one of the greatest educational advancements in US history. That's true, but it's also the single most significant increase in socioeconomic power and strength in the United States. Our middle class exploded. It got bigger than it had ever been before. Our economy explodes in the 1950s. Understand, the tax rate on the very wealthy in the 1950s was 60 to 75%. 60 to 75%. And our economy was exploding. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that people got the opportunity to have their college paid for. And the middle class grew and grew. Here are some of those associations that Scotchpol identified. Now, understand that over 70% of Americans, over 70% of adults belong to them. And of these, at least 1% of American men, women, or adults, a combination, was in each one of these. These were the biggest. And they were structured. So there were local levels and state levels and federal levels. So people understood how government worked. So this is an important question for you. You ready? How many of you are either a member of one of these or your parents are a member of one of these as an adult? Edward and Eric, what are you members of?
Oh, go ahead, Edward.
Sorry, I was going to say VFW and American Red Cross.
VFW and?
American Red Cross.
American Red Cross, okay.
The American Red Cross and the Young Men's Christian Association, the YMCA.
Okay. All right. I'm an elk. I was, pinned by my father. He brought blood to there, and I was pinned.
I'm surprised the Rotary's not on there because that's my organization, but each their own.
Well, the Rotary is different because it's a business association.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not included here, even though the Rotary is a good example of a civic organization. She was focusing on those that were not professional in nature. Okay. All right. So a lot of you have some some membership, all right? Some Eagle Scouts, some American Legion, some NRA, all right? So there's been a decline, however, of large membership associations. They become unfashionable after the 1960s. Essentially, the boomers kill them. The boomers decide they're too hokey. They don't want to go to a place where you wear, a moose head. They don't like the idea of the fact that Huckabee brought blood here, and so he gets to pin his child into membership. Okay, it's unfashionable. It's not hip. All right. So boomers instead start writing checks, and they write checks to interest groups, and interest groups are very elite. Okay. So they're going to be replaced by professional advocacy, groups that work specifically for different professions, or by groups that are supported by this checkbook democracy. Yeah, boomers. So privileged Americans, in addition to this, detach from local engagement. They completely detach. So an example of this is, I teach urban politics right now too, and I just gave this lecture like a month ago about the fact that there used to be people who were leaders in corporations, CEOs and CFOs, who would really take an interest in how downtown was shaped and work on the urban shaping of things. And, there are still those who are very active. In Oklahoma City, we certainly see the results of that. But in most places, they pulled back. They no longer engaged at the local level. Instead, they moved to gated communities. They spent their money elsewhere, and they did not join. It was a succession of the successful. So that took an entire class or two out of participation. And in one generation, the boomers killed the civic world. It vanished. There's consequences of this. Government is less responsive to average citizens, which means legislation is less responsive to the economic needs of non-professionals. In 2009, the Recovery Act response was not focused on jobs, but on banks. That's a problem because there was high unemployment. What about 2020? When we responded in 2020, we definitely saw that people got direct stimulus aid. In addition, unemployment benefits were extended and expanded for a period of time. But understand that corporations still received the bulk of stimulus and government aid in 2020. In 2021, we're not seeing that. The most recent one has been focused more on people and small businesses, and it is more responsive. Another consequence is polarization in politics. Just like we talked about with the big sort, if you never talk to anyone that has different experiences than you do, or comes from a different walk of life, because why should you? Then you're never going to be able to see the gray. You're never going to be able to negotiate. You're never going to be able to figure that maybe, a little bit of that's not bad. Let's figure out how it is that we can work together. And there's no incentive because you don't like them. You don't have to like them because you don't know them. So how do we revitalize a lost civic world? Can we create a 21st century version? How do we revitalize political democracy? We need leaders who can devise new models of association. And that's you. That's the way you use social media. But it also needs, and maybe the world is ready for this, as we maybe, though COVID numbers are back up again this week because of various things. But maybe people are willing to work in local chapters and affiliated groups and begin to work through this and be participatory again after a year of being kept from these groups. There's another possibility Scotch Poll puts out. She says she thinks there ought to be tax incentives for membership groups, right? You join, you get a tax break. Eric is in too, so is Edward. So, double tax breaks. Others say, hey, look, there ought to be a national election holiday and easier registration. That's the way you solve participation. Curb the sway of money. We've talked about that with super PACs. Fix gerrymandering, the Electoral College. These are possibilities as well. I asked this question a little early, actually, but can social media be re-engineered to create new forms of civic association rather than civic division? Because for the most part, what we've seen is more extreme groups grow out of social media. That said, my neighborhood Facebook group is very non-extreme. We build a lot of social capital. They found out I was bringing home a new baby last week, and I had Pampers on the doorstep. I had people calling to see if I needed anything. And Sebastian says, with association, wouldn't there need to be division at some point? Yeah, but I think that a lot of our divides are happening at class levels. And so maybe trying to figure out how not to create the divide at class levels. We can all be Sooner fans, regardless of class. And I think that that's something that brings us together. But I don't think anything outside of sports really does so. And Nolan's talking about a hybrid experience. I think she might be right. Organization. Well, I don't know, Sebastian. I think that Sebastian says that changing the dividing points are opinions and worldviews instead of what you make in a paycheck. Yes and no. Most of these groups had nothing to do. I mean, some of them were more ideological, but even the NRA 50 years ago wasn't ideological. It was just people who liked hunting and using guns for sport. It became ideological in the late 1970s when there was a takeover. Before then, people just joined because they wanted to go to the hunting, to go hunting or go to the shooting range. So when we talk about throwing ideology in, these civic groups aren't meant to be ideological. They're meant to be about bigger community things. So I have a poll for you, and it's based on this. Oh, attendance is over, and I don't know if you guys logged in. I think Eric, if so, Eric already fixed attendance.
Correct.
Is that right, Eric?
Correct.
Okay. But I have a poll for you. And I'm asking you, which one of these is the best way, so maybe all of them are good, but what's the best way to cultivate participation? Social capital, service learning, civic engagement, or civic groups, or tax and electoral reform. So the poll is live. And I want it to be noted that my 6-year-old rejected this adorable water bottle, so now it's mine.
That's awesome.
The ideas were not necessarily diverse, but I mean, they were at least, we weren't talking about everything being a political issue. And a lot of the issues, whenever it came to economics, were very diverse, right? A lot of the opinions were very diverse whenever it came to economics. And so they would have, but that's not their function. It's just that they would have conversations with someone with whom they disagreed. Jackson hates Baby Yoda? Jackson, F.
Yes.
F Jackson.
I
F.
want to punt Baby Yoda like a soccer ball. I hate him so much.
I'll make sure to fail him, not to worry.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
It's too late. I'm already the governor of Texas.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that the governor of Texas did fail this class, so.
Cool.
It's a joke. It's just a joke.
Most people from Texas would fail this class. I mean, it's pretty hard for them.
Okay, it looks like only 126 of you are left.
Ouch.
That hurts. That's exactly half the class has disappeared. 41% of you who are left say civic groups. I think you're right. I think Scotch Hole's got something, but another 29% say service learning. Obviously, I teach this class. I think it's important. And then 16 and 14% respectively for social capital and tax and electoral reform. All right. You guys, I want you to have a great week. I have no idea what time it is. Oh, look, we're early. So if you have questions, I'll be here, but then I'll also be in my office hours.